After 35 years on death row, Donald Dillbeck didn't beg for mercy and never asked for forgiveness. Instead, he used his final breath to launch a verbal attack on the governor of Florida. But how did a teenage killer become one of Florida's most notorious death row inmates? What happened during his violent escape, and why did his last meal spark nationwide curiosity? This is the chilling case of Donald Dillbeck, from bloodshed to execution. Let's dive into the chilling final chapter of a man who refused to go quietly. Donald Dillbeck's path to death row began far earlier than his final crime. In 1979, at the age of 15, he murdered a Lee County Sheriff's deputy, Dwight Hall, during a botched car theft. For that crime, he was sentenced to life in prison. However, the system that confined him would ultimately fail to contain him, setting the stage for an even more tragic event. On June 24, 1990, Dillbeck, then 26 years old, orchestrated an escape from a work release program in Collier County. He was serving his life sentence but was granted certain privileges, which he brutally exploited. His escape was not a quiet disappearance. It immediately plunged him back into a life of violent crime. He made his way to a shopping mall in Tallahassee, where he encountered Faye Vann, a 44-year-old mother who was inside the mall completing errands.
When he was convicted of stabbing a woman to death after escaping from prison.
Yeah, News4JAX reporter Eric Avanier joining us live tonight after returning from Florida State Prison in Rayford near Stark. Eric?
Well, Kent, it took more than 30 years for that execution to happen, and according to corrections officials, the lethal injection was flawlessly carried out.
Faye Vann was a state employee, a loving mother, and an active member of her community. Her life was violently and unjustly cut short when Dillbeck approached her in the mall's parking lot. He attempted to carjack her. When she resisted, Dillbeck brutally stabbed her multiple times, causing fatal injuries. He then stole her car and fled the scene, leaving a scene of devastation and a community in shock. The swift investigation that followed quickly identified Donald Dillbeck as the prime suspect. His extensive criminal history, combined with eyewitness accounts and forensic evidence, led to his rapid apprehension. He was captured shortly after the murder. The community's outrage was palpable, demanding swift and unequivocal justice for Faye Vann. At trial in 1991, prosecutors laid out a compelling case, detailing Dillbeck's prior conviction for murdering a law enforcement officer, his escape from prison, and the merciless nature of Faye Vann's murder. The jury found him guilty of first-degree murder. Given the aggravating circumstances, including his prior capital felony conviction and the murder committed during an escape, the jury recommended the death penalty. The judge subsequently imposed the sentence of death. For the next 3.5 decades, Donald Dillbeck resided on Florida's death row. His cell became his world, a small, stark space within Florida State Prison, a facility known for its high security and the stark reality of its purpose. Like all inmates sentenced to death, Dillbeck's case entered a lengthy and complex appeals process. His legal team filed numerous appeals in both state and federal courts, challenging his conviction and sentence on various grounds. These appeals typically focus on issues such as the effectiveness of trial counsel, the admissibility of evidence, jury instructions, and potential errors in the sentencing phase. Each appeal, meticulously prepared and argued, offered a reprieve, a chance to halt the inevitable. But with each denial, the clock on Dillbeck's life moved closer to its final hour. Despite these exhaustive legal efforts, the state and federal courts consistently upheld his conviction and death sentence. In late 2022, the state of Florida set an execution date for Donald Dillbeck, February 23, 2023. With all conventional legal avenues exhausted, the final recourse was a clemency petition to Governor Ron DeSantis. The petition argued for a commutation of his sentence to life without parole, often citing factors like the duration of his incarceration, potential remorse, or mitigating circumstances that may not have been fully considered at trial. However, the Florida Board of Executive Clemency, consisting of the governor and members of the cabinet, ultimately voted to deny clemency. Governor DeSantis signed the death warrant, confirming that the execution would proceed as scheduled. In the hours leading up to an execution, inmates are typically granted a final meal. While the practice of elaborate last meals has been curtailed in some states, Florida still allows for a requested meal, albeit with certain limitations on cost and availability. Donald Dillbeck's final meal became one of the widely reported details of his last day. His requested items included fried shrimp, onion rings, mushrooms, a large bag of butter pecan ice cream, a chocolate bar, and a pecan pie. He also requested a cola to drink. Reports from prison staff indicated that he consumed most of his meals. As the evening of February 23, 2023 descended, Donald Dillbeck was escorted into the execution chamber at Florida State Prison. He was secured to a gurney, and intravenous lines were carefully inserted into his arms. Witnesses to the execution included media representatives, prison officials, and notably, members of Faye Van's family. Before the lethal injection sequence commenced, a microphone was positioned, offering Dillbeck the opportunity to deliver any final words. Close-up on Dillbeck's face, actor or representative image conveying defiance or intensity. What followed was not a statement of remorse or regret, but a defiant and pointed address. In a clear and steady voice, Donald Dillbeck directed his final words at Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who signed Dillbeck's death warrant exactly 1 month prior on January 23, 2023, stating, "I know I hurt people when I was young. I did. I hope they forgive me. But I want to tell Ron DeSantis he's a scumbag, and so is your wife, and I hope you and your wife are happy with whatever y'all are doing." He concluded by adding, "I hope you go to hell, you f***ing bitch." These words, shocking in their directness and venom, immediately garnered significant media attention and sparked further debate about the nature of a condemned person's final moments. At 6:13 p.m. EST, the lethal injection drugs began to flow. Witnesses reported that Dillbeck closed his eyes. His chest rose and fell several times before his breathing became shallow and then ceased. At 6:19 p.m., just 6 minutes after the process began, Donald Dillbeck was pronounced dead.
Execution in 4 years in Florida took place yesterday. Convicted murderer Donald Dillbeck died by lethal injection at Florida State Prison.
Outside the prison walls, reactions to the execution were swift and varied. Faye Van's family, who had waited decades for this moment, released a statement expressing a sense of relief and closure. They stated, 11,932 days ago, Donald Dillbeck brutally killed our mother. Tony and Laura Van wrote, "We were robbed of years of memories with him, and it has been very painful ever since. However, the execution has given us some closure." They spoke of finally finding peace after years of anguish and the lengthy appeals process.
That woman was Faye Van.
I remember she always used to cook me breakfast for school every morning. She always had my clothes laid out for me.
Conversely, anti-death penalty activists and civil liberties organizations expressed their continued opposition to capital punishment, reiterating their arguments about its morality, efficacy, and risk of wrongful executions. The execution of Donald Dillbeck was the first in Florida in 2023, and it reignited a vigorous debate about the death penalty within the state and nationally. Florida has one of the largest death row populations in the United States, and its approach to capital punishment has often been a subject of intense scrutiny. Beyond the immediate reactions, Dillbeck's case forces a deeper contemplation of several complex issues surrounding capital punishment. The decades-long appeals process, while designed to ensure due process and prevent wrongful executions, often results in agonizingly long waits for victims' families and prolonged incarceration for the condemned. This raises questions about the very definition of justice and closure. The defiance of Dillbeck's final words also prompted discussions about remorse, rehabilitation, and the psychological state of individuals facing execution. Some argue that such statements underscore the lack of true repentance, while others view them as a desperate act of rebellion in the face of absolute power. The financial cost of the death penalty remains a persistent point of contention. Studies consistently show that prosecuting capital cases and maintaining death row inmates is significantly more expensive than sentencing individuals to life without parole. This economic argument adds another layer to the moral and ethical debate surrounding capital punishment. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button. Thanks for watching.